Great. So I pestered this guy incessantly until he finally said, "Okay, I'll come speak. Leave me alone."
Yeah, like you don't stop, so that's a good thing.
So maybe I think most people probably know who you are, but maybe give just a brief overview of what you've been up to the last few years.
Sure. So why I'm here and what I was up to, I started a company called AppDynamics back in 2008. No? Is this on?
Of course.
Okay. So my name is Jyoti Bansal. I started a company called AppDynamics back in 2008. This year we were about to go IPO early in the year. And a couple of days before we were about to go IPO, my company was acquired by Cisco for $3.7 billion. And that was, and he wanted to hear my story here on fundraising and things like that. So that's what I'm here. AppDynamics was an application monitoring and management space, selling into large enterprises, like normally Fortune 1000 kind of companies. So very B2B business.
I don't know if you enunciated enough, but that was a billion, 3.7 billion, not 3.7 million. So just big, exciting exit. So you've been having a good year so far. It's
Yeah.
So far so good, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's obviously don't need to say that. Yeah.
Maybe let's almost kind of work backwards. I want to get into your funding and how you started off, but almost let's take us kind of a reverse chronology for a little bit. In a nutshell or two, what was the thought process behind selling instead of going public? Was it just the Sarbanes-Oxley and regulatory? I mean, there's probably a lot involved.
Well, no, there is no real thought process as in going public versus selling the company. We were about to go public, and we would have gone public in 3 days if we didn't sell. It was just an offer we couldn't refuse. That was really it. And at some point, from a shareholder perspective, for employee perspective, you have to look at like if it's an offer that's really good for everyone, you have to consider it, right? So that's really the process behind. It's not that we accepted the first offer. We have said no to many offers in the past, and this one, we had one offer like 10 days before the IPO from Cisco. We said no. They did another offer which we said no, and they did a third offer which we couldn't say no. That was really the thought process.
Yeah, very interesting. Were you nervous about going public? Because that opens up a whole new level of scrutiny. Did that play into it at all, or was it just...
Not really. We have been readying for going public for a long time. So it's not that, so we were like, everything was set up, like the whole, like, the planning for the wedding was all set up. It was just really at the last minute that we didn't do it. And it was kind of painful to not do it in the last minute because all our employees and all were like, what just happened? Like, we had 20 employees already in New York to ring the bell with us. And so we had to kind of ask them to come back and things like that.
Very amazing. Do you ever just wake up in a cold sweat thinking it was all just a dream and you've got to go back into work?
It's an interesting question. Like, AppDynamics was a good story, successful story, but it's a long time. It's 9 years in the making. Like, I started 9 years ago. So many times it feels like, just people think it happens overnight, but startups don't happen overnight. It takes a long time, like, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 15 years even, to build a meaningful startup. I do run into founders sometimes who are like, who feel like, that it's probably a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year something like which you can do in a job. But if you want to build a startup, it's a long time. So it's hard. It doesn't feel like it was just a dream because it's like a long time.
So let's go back to the beginning, the early days. When you left where were you working before you left the start?
So I was working at another startup, a small startup about 100 employees, and it was acquired by a larger company, Computer Associates. The startup was called Wiley Technology. So I was working there, and then I had this idea that I wanted to work on the idea of AppDynamics and what we were doing at AppDynamics, and that's when one day I decided I got to do this, and let me quit my job and start this company. Right?
And the topic tonight is fundraising. So how did you fund it in the beginning? Did you bootstrap it? Did you raise some angel money? What was the initial capital?
I did bootstrap it in the beginning. I would say the fundraising I thought would take longer, but it took me about. So I started doing fundraising. I started building the product, writing code, and doing some fundraising while I was in my previous job. That wasn't going very well. And I realized that I need to quit my job and do this full time. And so I quit my job and started doing this full time. And then it was like my day was, and it was just me. I was the sole founder, and so it was just one person company really. So I would write code, build out my PowerPoint presentation, things like that, and then go to Sand Hill Road and pitch to the VCs all the time. So that was
just you,
just me.
It was PowerPoint. That's amazing.
And some code, but my code was too technical to show to anyone because it was a very technical product. But it was just that, and it took about the whole process 3 months before quitting my job, and maybe 3-4 months after quitting my job. The 6-7 month funding process, and I did bootstrap in that phase. Didn't raise any kind of external round.
So that was you went straight to the Series A, or there was an angel round?
No, I went straight to Series A.
Okay.
And I went straight to Series A for 2 reasons. One was the product that I was building was a very complex B2B product. It's designed for large enterprises, very technical. A lot of technological complexity in it. And it was hard to get the product out without hiring a team of at least, let's say, 7 to 8 engineers there. And it would have taken a year or so to do that. That was one thing. The second was the seed investor world back in 2008 wasn't as robust as what it is now. Like now, seed and angel is really, really robust. At that time for B2B, you had to go and try to convince the bigger VCs. So I went to Series A. If I have to do it again, I will probably not do straight to Series A. I would do a seed round first.
And how many rounds did you guys ultimately raise?
A lot. We raised close to about $250 million of funding over 6 different rounds.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned so there's a really good LinkedIn article, a plug, that you wrote about picking your VCs. You guys should Google it and read it. Very interesting. But you wrote in that you had multiple VC offers. What was it? That's hard to get, right? That's not, most startups are scrambling to get one VC to put down a term sheet. You had multiple offers, and you had the luxury of picking which VC to work with. So what was it about your company or the process you ran that gave you kind of a competitive deal?
In my experience, what I have learned is if you get offer from one VC, there's a high chance that you can get offers from multiple VCs at that time, because you are ready. If you're ready for one VC, you're ready for other VCs also. And all VCs are looking for about the same kind of things. So it's like if I look at the very high level, they're looking for is the VCs do want $1 billion outcome, right? That's how their business model works. They don't want to have at least they want to shoot for that outcome. Because if they invest in 10 companies and one become $1 billion and make a lot of money, 5 or 6 will not make any money, and few will make some return for them. So their business model is go big or go home. So that's what they're looking for. And they know like if they find all companies like that, they will make some of them will get there, right? So you have to convince them of. So to me, it's like it really comes down to 3 things. You have to convince them that if everything goes right, this could be $1 billion company. Then second thing you have to convince them is like it's the traction in the market, traction of some kind, of some validation from potential customers, from existing customers, from someone who is validating your product, your thesis, your market, all of that. So that's why you will keep hearing traction of some kind, right? And the third is really like why you. So if they're convinced that it's a large market and there's traction, and how can you be the winner? So sometimes it'd be like you as the founders, or you as in your product approach, or you as in your sales approach, marketing approach, something like what is the moat, or what's the thing that you have unique that will make you the winner of the 4 or 5 startups that will compete for that particular space. Because every big space, multiple startups do compete. So to me, it's like that's the story. It's really those 3 things. And I struggled with it initially. I pitched about 20 VCs who said no to me for like 3-4 months, and then at some point the story kept getting better and better, right? So the story, these 3 things were starting to come together, and then I had like one offer, and all the PCs I pitched to, once they heard I have one offer, they suddenly started putting all of them started putting offers, and I had like 5 or 6 offers very quickly. But that's not very uncommon. I have seen that many times that it's if your startup is attractive to one VC because you are meeting those criteria that the VCs are looking for, then it starts becoming attractive to other VCs at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's like, what was your moat? What was your why you? And what was the thing that really hooked on Namaste.
I would say the moat why you was for me was a few things. Like, I was solving a problem that was pretty technically complex, and I had prior experience and like 9 different patents in that particular technology area. So, I may not be maybe an expert in it, but at least I was perceived as an expert. So that was my moat in some way. Like, so people would think this guy has 9 patents in this area and seems like an expert. So maybe that's why the potential of winning in this is more than other companies start getting started in this. So that was definitely a moat. And as a founder, you have to identify like what would sell as the moat and maybe sell it more. So for me, that was definitely part of it. The technology approach was a bit of a advantage. A lot of investors don't really get it that much, but still, that was an advantage. Some smart investors got it, and that helped to sell as a moat as well.